The ship moved slowly through the darkness of space. It was called the Starlight Harmony, and it belonged to the Galactic Union. The Union was a group of many alien species who had joined together to explore the universe. They had been doing this for thousands of years. Humans had only joined them 200 years ago, and many aliens still thought of humans as the new and weak species. Deep inside the ship, in the lowest level, there was a special room. The walls were made of thick metal. Blue energy barriers hummed with power. Warning signs covered every door. Inside this room sat a cage, and inside the cage was the most dangerous creature the Union had ever found. They called it a... Dr. Park stood in front of the observation window. She was which meant she studied alien life forms. She had seen many strange creatures in her career. She had studied peaceful plant beings from the moon gardens of. She had observed the giant sand whales of the desert world, but she had never seen anything like the creature was as big as a small car. It had 6 powerful legs that ended in curved black claws. Its body was covered in scales that looked like polished obsidian, so dark that light seemed to disappear into them. 2 large eyes sat on its angular head, and they burned with an orange glow like embers in a dying fire. When it opened its mouth, rows of teeth gleamed, and could see the venom glands pulsing at the base of its fangs. The paced back and forth in its cage. It moved like water, smooth and dangerous. Every step was silent despite its massive size. It had been doing this for 6 days now, walking, watching, waiting. The door behind opened and Commander Ryu walked in. He was one of the oldest species in the Union. They looked somewhat like tall wolves that walked on 2 legs. They had gray fur, pointed ears, and yellow eyes. They were known as great hunters and warriors. Stood beside and looked at the creature with hatred in his eyes. "It still has not eaten," he said. His voice was rough like stones grinding together. "We have offered it fresh meat, live prey, nothing works." "Maybe it is not hungry," replied softly. Made a sound of disbelief. "Thee is always hungry. My people have hunted these beasts for 500 years. I know what they are. They are killing machines. They feel nothing but the need to destroy." Did not answer right away. She watched the creature pace. There was something in its movements that the commander could not see, something that her human eyes recognized. "How many people did it kill?" she asked. "On the planet, I mean." 14 researchers answered. It attacked the science base on Prime without warning, tore through the walls like they were paper. We lost soldiers, we lost engineers, we even lost a who was visiting. He paused. "We were lucky to capture it alive. The Union wants it studied. They want to understand how to control it, perhaps even use it as a weapon." Felt a chill run down her spine. The idea of using such a creature as a weapon disturbed her deeply, but she said nothing about that. Instead, she asked another question. "Where exactly on Prime did you find it?" Looked at her with confusion. "What does that matter?" "Please just tell me." The commander pulled out a data pad and checked the records. The eastern caves of the Amber Valley. It had made a nest there. We used sonic grenades to drive it out into the open. His heart sank. "A nest," she repeated. "Was there anything in the nest?" "Broken shells," said dismissively. "Bones, the usual things predators collect." "Broken shells," whispered. She stepped closer to the window, the stopped packing. It turned its head and looked directly at her. Those burning orange eyes seemed to pierce right through the glass and into her soul. She was not afraid. She felt something else, something that surprised her. She felt sad. "Commander," said slowly, "I need to see the full medical scan of this creature." Frowned but gave the order. A few minutes later, a holographic image appeared in the air. It showed this body in complete detail. Bones, muscles, organs, everything was visible. Studied the image carefully. Then she found what she was looking for. "There," she said, pointing at the creature's underbelly. "Do you see those marks?" Leaned closer. "Scratch marks, small ones, probably from prey fighting back." No, shook her head. Those are nursing wounds. This is female. She was feeding her young. The commander went very still. The broken shells in the nest, continued. Those were not collected bones. Those were eggs, her eggs. When you drove her out of the cave with sonic grenades, you separated her from her children. Yellow eyes widened. That cannot be right. Do not care for their young. They lay eggs and leave them. Every study says so. Every study, corrected gently, done by hunters who killed the mothers before they could observe anything else. She turned back to the window. The had not moved. It still stared at her with those ember eyes. She is not refusing to eat because she is planning an attack. She is refusing to eat because she has given up. She thinks her children are dead. Was silent for a long time. When he spoke again, his voice was quieter than before. Even if that is true, it changes nothing. The creature is dangerous. It killed 14 people. She was protecting her nest, said. Any mother would do the same. You are putting human emotions onto an alien beast. Maybe, or maybe we have been blind to those emotions all along. The commander shook his head and walked toward the door. The Union wants their weapons studied, Doctor. That is your job. Do not let your human softness confuse you. He left. The door closed behind him with a heavy sound. Remained at the window. The had started packing again, but slower now. It looked tired, it looked broken. I see you, whispered, even though she knew the creature could not understand her. I see what you really are. The ship continued its journey through the stars. Everyone on board went about their duties. The engineers checked the engines. The pilots watched the navigation systems. The soldiers patrolled the corridors. Everything was normal. But that night, something went wrong. It started with a small flicker in the lights, then a strange sound from the power systems. An engineer named Minu noticed it first. He reported it to the bridge, but before anyone could investigate, the entire ship went dark. Emergency lights came on, bathing everything in deep red. Alarms began to scream. Voices shouted over the communication systems. And then came the message that everyone had feared. Containment breach. The specimen has escaped. All personnel to secure zones immediately. Down in the observation room, the cage door stood open. The energy barriers had failed. The reinforced walls had a hole in them, torn apart like wet paper. There was loose on the ship. And somewhere in the dark corridors, a young human technician named was about to have an encounter that would change everything. The alarms were so loud that could feel them in his chest. Red lights flashed in the narrow maintenance shaft where he had been working. He was covered in grease and coolant fluid, his tools scattered around him on the metal floor. Was not an important person on the ship. He was just a technician, one of dozens who kept the Starlight Harmony running. His job was to fix broken pipes, replace damaged wires, and make sure the smaller systems worked properly. It was boring work, but he did not mind. He had grown up on a farming colony called New, where life was simple and quiet. He was used to boring. But this was not boring. All personnel to secure zones immediately, the voice on the speakers repeated. The specimen has escaped. This is not a drill. Grabbed his communication device and pressed the button. This is technician in maintenance shaft 7. See what is happening. What specimen? The answer came in broken pieces mixed with static. Containment failure, extremely dangerous. Do not engage. The message cut off. The lights flickered once, twice, and then went completely dark. Sat in total blackness. His heart was beating very fast. He had heard stories about the creature they had brought on board. Everyone on the ship had heard stories. A monster from Prime. A beast that had killed 14 people. Something so dangerous that it needed 3 layers of barriers to contain it. And now it was free. He needed to get to a secure zone. He needed to find other people. He needed to move. But where? The maintenance shaft was deep inside the ship, far from the main corridors. In normal times, he could find his way with his eyes closed. But these were not normal times. The emergency power had failed. His small flashlight was in his toolbox somewhere, but he could not see anything to search for it. Took a slow breath. Panic would not help him. His grandmother had taught him that many years ago back on the farm. When the storms came and the animals were scared, she would speak to him in her calm voice. Fear makes you stupid, she would say. Breathe first, think second, move third. He breathed, he thought. He started to feel around the floor for his toolbox. His fingers touched metal, a wrench, a screwdriver, then the familiar shape of his flashlight. He grabbed it and pressed the switch. A weak yellow beam cut through the darkness. It was not much, but it was enough. Stood up slowly. The shaft stretched in two directions. Left would take him toward the engine room. Right would take him toward the crew quarters. Both were far away. Both required passing through many dark corridors. He chose right. The crew quarters were closer to the secure zones. He started walking. The flashlight made strange shadows on the walls. Every sound seemed louder than it should. The hum of the backup systems, the dripping of coolant from a broken pipe, his own footsteps on the metal floor. And then he heard something else. Clicking, a soft, rhythmic clicking sound, like claws tapping on metal. Stopped, he held his breath. The clicking continued, getting closer. He turned off his flashlight. Darkness swallowed him completely. He pressed his back against the wall and made himself as small as possible. The clicking came closer, closer. It was right around the corner now. Then it stopped. Could hear breathing. Deep, slow breathing. Something very large was standing just a few meters away from him. He should run. Every part of his body screamed at him to run, but his grandmother's voice was still in his head. Fear makes you stupid. Running from a predator only makes it chase you. The movement, the noise, the smell of panic in your sweat, it all says one thing: pray. On the farm, they had dealt with dangerous animals sometimes, wild dogs from the hills. Once, a mountain cat had wandered down during a harsh winter. His grandmother had taught him what to do. You do not run. You do not scream. You make yourself small but not scared. You breathe slowly. You show the animal that you are not a threat, but you are not food either. Could that work with an alien creature? Did not know, but he had no other choice. He lowered himself to the floor, sitting with his back against the wall. He put his hands on his knees, palms open and facing up. He closed his eyes even though it was already dark. He breathed in slowly through his nose and out through his mouth. The creature moved. He heard it come around the corner. He felt the vibration of its weight through the metal floor. It was right in front of him now. Hot breath washed over his face. It smelled like copper and stone. The creature was sniffing him, learning his scent. A growl started to build in its throat, low and deep, like thunder in the distance. Kept breathing, slow, steady. His heart was pounding, but he forced his body to stay calm. He thought about the farm. He thought about the fields of golden grain under the summer sun. He thought about his grandmother's voice singing old songs while she worked. Without thinking about it, he started to hum. It was a simple melody, just a few notes repeated over and over. His grandmother used to hum it to calm frightened animals during storms. He had not thought about that song in years, but now it came back to him as natural as breathing. The growl stopped. Kept humming. The melody was soft and low. It vibrated in his chest. He did not open his eyes. He did not move his hands. He just sat there, small and calm, making that gentle sound. Something touched his knee, something hard and smooth. The creature's nose, he realized. It was pressing against his leg, not attacking, just touching. He kept humming. The creature moved again. He heard it settle onto the floor beside him. A massive weight pressed against his side, warm, heavy, alive. Opened his eyes slowly. His vision had adjusted to the darkness a little bit. He could see the outline of the beast. It was lying next to him, its 6 legs tucked under its body, its head resting on the floor near his thigh. Its eyes were still open, still glowing with that soft orange light, but the glow was different now. Less angry, almost peaceful. He stopped humming and the creature made a sound, a low rumble like a machine starting up, but it was not coming from any machine. It was coming from the creature's chest. It was purring. Sat very still. He was afraid to move, afraid to break whatever strange spell had fallen over them. The most dangerous predator in the known galaxy was lying beside him like a sleeping pet. It made no sense. It went against everything the scientists and soldiers believed. But it was happening. Minutes passed, maybe hours, lost track of time. The creature's warmth seeped into his body. Despite everything, despite the fear and the danger, he felt his own muscles relaxing. His breathing slowed even more. His eyes grew heavy. He was almost asleep when he heard footsteps in the distance. Many footsteps, moving fast. Lights appeared around the corner, bright and blinding after so long in the dark. "There, I have a heat signature," someone shouted. Soldiers appeared, their weapons raised, their faces twisted with fear and determination. Commander was at the front, his gray fur standing on end, his yellow eyes wide with shock. Doctor pushed past him, her mouth falling open when she saw the scene before her. Looked up at them calmly. The creature beside him stirred but did not rise. It simply pressed closer to his leg and closed its eyes. "Please," said softly, "do not shoot, she is sleeping." Nobody moved. The soldiers stood frozen with their weapons raised, their lights pointed at and the massive creature beside him. Shadows danced on the walls. The air was thick with tension. Commander's finger rested on the trigger of his plasma rifle. His yellow eyes were fixed on the... Every muscle in his body was ready for battle. He had spent his whole life hunting creatures like this. He knew how fast they could move. He knew how deadly they were. "Technician," he said slowly, his voice tight with control, "move away from the creature, very slowly." Shook his head. "If I move, she might wake up. If she wakes up scared and sees all your guns, she will attack. People will die." "People have already died," growled. 14 of them on Prime. She was protecting her children. The commander's ears flattened against his head. "You cannot know that." "I do know it," looked at the creature beside him. In the bright lights he could see her clearly for the first time. Her black scales reflected the beams like dark mirrors. Her chest rose and fell with each breath. That strange purring sound still vibrated through her body. "Look at her. Does she look like a monster to you right now?" Doctor stepped forward. She moved slowly, carefully, keeping her hands visible. "Commander, please lower your weapons. Let me assess the situation." Did not move. "This is a security matter, Doctor. That thing killed our people. And right now, that thing is sleeping peacefully next to a human technician." His voice was calm but firm. "Do you not want to understand why? Do you not want to know how this is possible?" The commander hesitated. His soldiers looked at him, waiting for orders. The moment stretched like a wire pulled too tight. Finally lowered his rifle. He gestured for his soldiers to do the same. "Fine, but if that creature makes one wrong move, we fire, understood?" Nodded and moved closer too. She kneeled down a few meters away from him, studying the with wide, amazed eyes. "How did you do this?" she asked softly. Thought about the question. How could he explain something that he did not fully understand himself? "I did not do anything special," he said. "I just stayed calm, I sat down, I breathed slowly, and then I hummed." "Hummed?" One of the soldiers let out a disbelieving laugh. "You hummed at it." "At her," corrected. "And yes, it was a song my grandmother used to sing, just a simple melody. She used it to calm frightened animals on our farm." Leaned forward with interest. "Can you show me? Can you hum it again?" Nodded. He closed his eyes and let the melody come back to him. It was a soft tune, rising and falling like gentle waves. There were no words, just notes. He had heard it 1,000 times as a child. It was the sound of safety, the sound of home. As he hummed, the stirred. Her eyes opened halfway, glowing with that warm orange light. She looked then at the soldiers standing beyond. A low rumble built in her throat. Kept humming. He did not stop, did not rush, did not change. The melody continued, steady and calm. This rumble faded. Her eyes closed again. The purring returned. Released a breath she had been holding. Incredible, she whispered. The vibration, the frequency of the sound, it must trigger something in her nervous system, a calming response. My grandmother always said that music speaks to the heart, said. Maybe that is true for all hearts, even alien ones. Commander moved closer, though he kept his distance from the creature. His expression had changed. The hatred was still there, but now it was mixed with something else. Confusion, maybe even wonder. They have studied for 500 years, he said. We have tracked them, fought them, killed them, but we have never seen anything like this. Maybe you were looking at them the wrong way, suggested. You saw them as enemies, as threats to be destroyed. But what if they are just creatures trying to survive like everyone else? They are predators. So are pointed out gently. Your species evolved as hunters too. Does that make you monsters? Had no answer for that. Over the next few hours, they formed a plan. Would stay with the while studied the situation. The soldiers would keep watch from a safe distance, ready to act if needed. Other crew members were told to stay away from this section of the ship. As the hours passed, learned more about the creature. She used scanning devices to measure this body temperature, heart rate, and brain activity. She recorded the sounds it made. She took notes on its behavior. What she found amazed her. This brain showed patterns similar to deep sleep when hummed. Its stress hormones dropped to almost nothing. Its muscles relaxed completely. All signs of aggression disappeared. This is groundbreaking, said, looking at her data. We always assumed we're purely instinct-driven creatures. No higher emotions, no social bonds, but these readings suggest something very different. What do they suggest? Asked. They suggest that she trusts you. Looked at him with new respect. Somehow, in just a few minutes, you formed a bond with a creature that should be impossible to bond with. Looked down at her head had moved during the hours. Now it rested on his thigh, heavy and warm. Her breathing was slow and peaceful. One of her 6 legs was stretched out, twitching slightly like a dreaming dog. I do not think I did anything special, he said again. I just treated her the way I would treat any scared creature, with patience, with kindness. That is special, said. That is incredibly special. Most species in the galaxy respond to danger with force. They fight or they run, but humans have another option. You connect. Commander had been listening to this conversation from across the room. Now he walked over, his movements slower than before, less aggressive. The ship's communication systems are back online, he reported. The Union Council has been informed about the containment breach. They want a full report. What will happen to her? Asked, his hand moving without thinking to rest on this neck. Her scales were warm and smooth like sun-heated stone. Was quiet for a moment. That depends on the Council. They may order us to destroy her. They may want more experiments. I do not know. She is not a thing, said. She is not a weapon. She is a mother who lost her children. The commander looked at him with those yellow eyes. Something had shifted in them over the past hours. The hatred was fading. In its place was something that looked almost like respect. I believe you, said quietly. For what that is worth, human, I believe you. Stood up and stretched her tired muscles. I need to prepare my report for the Council. They will want evidence, data, proof that this creature can be peaceful. Will they believe it? Asked. I do not know. The Union has feared for centuries. Fear is hard to overcome. She paused at the door and looked back at him. But you have given us something we never had before. Hope. She left. The soldiers remained at their posts, but their weapons were no longer aimed at They watched with curiosity instead of fear. Stayed where he was. The slept beside him, her warmth spreading through his body. Her purring vibrated through the floor. In a few hours, he would have to face the Galactic Council. He would have to explain what had happened. He would have to convince beings who had never known anything but conflict that peace was possible. He was just a technician, just a simple man from a farming colony. He had no important title, no special training, no political power. But he had something else. He had the trust of a creature that had never trusted anyone before. And sometimes that was enough to change everything. The council chamber was not a physical room. It was a vast holographic space that connected leaders from across the galaxy. When the quantum link activated, found himself standing in what looked like an endless hall made of light. Stars floated in the darkness beyond the glowing floor. Giant figures sat in a circle around him, each one representing a different species of the Galactic Union. He had never felt so small in his entire life. Doctor stood beside him, dressed in her formal science uniform. She had prepared for hours, organizing data, practicing her presentation. She looked calm but could see the nervous tension in her shoulders. Commander was there too, representing the military perspective. His gray fur had been groomed carefully, and he stood at rigid attention. And beside, pressed against his leg like a shadow, was the council had demanded to see the creature. They had not believed the reports of the most dangerous predator in known space acting like a tame pet. Impossible. They needed to see it with their own eyes. High Arbiter Thessaly spoke first. He was a being made of living crystal. His body was tall and angular, glowing with soft blue bioluminescence. When he spoke, his voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. "This is unprecedented," Thessaly said. "In the 4,000 years since the Galactic Union was formed, no species has ever reported peaceful contact with they are considered Class 7 threats. Extermination on site is standard protocol." I leaned forward. There were silicon-based life forms, their bodies made of flowing glass and metal. Yet here we see the beast lying docile at the feet of a human. How is this possible? What drug or technology have you used? "No drugs," answered. "No technology, just the natural behavior of a human being." She activated her presentation. Holographic data appeared in the air, showing brain scans, hormone levels, and behavioral analysis. She explained everything she had learned over the past days. The true nature, the nursing wounds, the connection between mother and offspring that they had never observed because they always killed the mothers first. The council listened in silence. Some of the alien faces showed interest, others showed doubt, a few showed clear disbelief. Ambassador, the representative, spoke next. He was older than his fur streaked with white, his eyes clouded with age but still sharp. "Dr. Park's theory is interesting," he said slowly, "but it challenges centuries of research. My people have studied longer than humans have been part of the Union. We have lost countless hunters to these beasts. Are you saying we were wrong about everything?" Hesitated. She did not want to insult though, but she could not lie either. Spoke before she could answer. "Permission to speak." The council turned to look at him. A maintenance technician, addressing the highest leaders in the galaxy. It was almost unheard of. High Arbiter Thessaly studied him for a long moment. "You are the human who made contact with the creature. Speak." Swallowed his fear. His hand rested on this neck. She was calm, her eyes half closed, her breathing slow. "I am nobody important," he began. "I fix pipes and wires. I come from a small farming colony where we grew rice and vegetables. I do not know much about science or politics or war." "Then why should we listen to you?" asked from a species did not recognize. "Because I know about animals," paused, collecting his thoughts. "On my colony we worked with many creatures. Some were gentle, some were dangerous. My grandmother taught me that every animal has a heart, even the ones with sharp teeth. The key is learning how to speak to that heart." He looked around the chamber at all those powerful beings. "They are great hunters, I respect that. But hunting and understanding are different things. When you hunt something, you learn how to kill it. When you try to understand something, you learn how to live with it. Ambassador's ears twitched. And you think you understand better than we do, after one encounter. I think I understood this one in that moment. Looked down at the creature beside him. She was scared. She was sad. She had lost her children and been taken from her home. When I sat with her in the dark, I did not see a monster. I saw a mother in pain. The chamber was silent. I hummed to her, continued. Just a simple song, nothing special, but it told her something. It told her that she was not alone, that someone saw her suffering and cared about it. High Arbiter Thessaly leaned forward, his crystal body chiming softly. You speak of empathy, of connection. These are concepts that many species in the Union struggle with. My own people communicate through resonance and light. We do not understand soft sounds and warm touch. Yet you use these things to reach a creature that has resisted all contact for centuries. Humans are strange, admitted. We are not the strongest, we are not the fastest. We do not have claws or venom or armor, but we have something else. We know how to bond. Bond, they made a sound of confusion. What does that mean? It means we make connections, explained, stepping forward. Throughout human history, we have taken wild creatures and made them our partners. Wolves became dogs. Wild cats became companions. Horses became helpers. We did not conquer these animals with force. We earned their trust over generations through patience and kindness. That is remarkable, Thessaly said. And you believe this ability can be applied to alien species. We just saw it happen, said suddenly. Everyone turned to look at the commander. He had been silent throughout the presentation. Now he stepped forward, his yellow eyes fixed on the council. I was there, he said. I saw this human sitting in the dark with I had my weapon ready. I was prepared to kill the creature the moment it moved, but it did not move. It just lay there, purring like a newborn kit. He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was softer. I have hated my entire life. My father was killed by one. My brother lost an arm to another. I believed they were evil, pure, and simple, but what I saw on that ship, he shook his head slowly. I cannot explain it, but I cannot deny it either. The council members looked at each other. Discussions began in a dozen different languages. The chamber filled with the sound of debate. Finally, High Arbiter Thessaly raised a hand for silence. This situation requires careful consideration, he announced. The human has demonstrated something that challenges our understanding of predator species. However, one incident does not make a policy. His heart sank. They were not going to believe. They were going to take Thea away, lock her up again, maybe even kill her. But Thessaly was not finished. Therefore, I propose a new initiative. We will return Thea to her home world of Prime. The human will accompany the creature along with Dr. Park. They will attempt to reunite Thea with any surviving offspring and observe the results. And if the creature becomes violent again, Ambassador asked, then we will have learned something as well. Thessaly's crystal body pulsed with blue light. But if the human is right, if connection and kindness can reach even the most dangerous creatures, then perhaps we have been approaching the universe wrong for a very long time. The vote was called. Species by species they gave their decisions. It was not unanimous. Many voted against, but in the end enough voted in favor. The mission was approved. Felt a wave of relief wash over him. He looked down at and she looked back at him. Those ember eyes seemed to hold something that might have been gratitude. We are going home, he whispered to her. We are going to find your children. They made a soft sound. Not a growl, not a purr, but something in between. A sound that no researcher had ever recorded before. A sound of hope. The ship descended through purple clouds and broke into the sky above Prime. Stood at the observation window, watching the alien world grow larger below him. It was beautiful in a strange and wild way. Violet grassland stretched across vast plains. Mountain ranges of deep red stone rose in the distance. Rivers of silver water cut through valleys where strange trees with golden leaves swayed in the wind. This was this home, and somewhere down there her children might still be waiting. 6 months had passed since the council meeting. In that time, everything had changed. Was no longer just a maintenance technician. The Galactic Union had given him a new title, Liaison. It was the first position of its kind, created specifically for him. His job was to help establish peaceful connections with dangerous alien species. He still could not quite believe it. Doctor stood beside him, checking data on her portable screen. She had been working day and night during the journey, studying everything known about Prime and its ecosystem. Commander had come as well, leading a small team of soldiers. But their mission was not to hunt. It was to protect. The who now called paced near the door. She had grown healthier during the months of travel. Her scales gleamed with a dark shine. Her eyes burned with renewed energy. She knew where they were going. She could smell her home even through the walls of the ship. The landing zone is near the Amber Valley, announced. That is where her nest was found. If any of her offspring survived, they would likely return there. Young are tough, added. If they hatched after the mother was captured, they might have survived on their own. They are born with hunting instincts. Nodded, he walked over to and placed his hand on her neck. She turned her head and looked at him with those ember eyes. Ready to go home? He asked softly. She made that sound again, the one she only made for him, that soft rumble that fell somewhere between a growl and a purr, a sound of trust. The ship landed on a flat plain of purple grass. The ramp lowered, and warm air rushed in, carrying scents of flowers and stone and something wild that could not identify. Pushed past everyone and ran down the ramp. Her 6 legs moved with incredible speed, carrying her across the grassland toward the distant hills. His heart jumped in fear for a moment, but then he saw that she had stopped. She stood at the edge of a small rise, her head lifted toward the sky, her nostrils flaring. She is calling to them, said quietly. Communicate through scent glands and low-frequency sounds. She is telling any offspring in the area that she is here. They waited. Minutes passed. The wind blew through the golden trees. Strange birds circled overhead, calling to each other in high-pitched voices. And then saw them. They emerged from a cave in the hillside, small shapes moving cautiously through the rocks. 3 of them, young, no bigger than large dogs. Their scales were softer than their mother's, still carrying the blue-green color of youth. Their eyes glowed with a lighter shade of orange. Made a sound that had never heard before, a high-pitched call, almost like singing. The young ones answered with the same sound and began running toward her. The reunion was something new he would remember for the rest of his life. The mother and children met in the middle of the field. They rubbed against each other, making those singing sounds over and over. The young ones climbed onto their mother's back, nipping at her neck and ears, lowered her head and nuzzled each one carefully, checking them, smelling them, making sure they were real. Doctor was recording everything. Tears ran down her face, though she did not seem to notice. This is incredible, she whispered. This is absolutely incredible. Look at the social bonding behavior, the vocalization patterns. Everything we thought we knew about was wrong. Watched from beside the ship, his arms folded across his chest. His expression was complicated. There was still pain in his eyes, the memory of family members killed by creatures like these. But there was also something new, understanding, perhaps, or the beginning of it. Walked toward the family. He moved slowly, carefully, giving time to see him coming. She lifted her head from her children and looked at him. For a moment he was afraid. What if the bond they had formed was not strong enough? What if, now that she was home with her children, she would see him as a threat instead of a friend? But did not growl. She did not attack. Instead, she walked toward him, leaving her children behind for just a moment. She stopped in front of him and pressed her great head against his chest. Wrapped his arms around her neck. He could feel the vibration of her purring against his body. Warmth spread through him, familiar and comforting. "I am glad you found them," he said quietly. "I am so glad." Pulled back and looked at him with those ancient, burning eyes. Something passed between them in that moment. Not words because she could not speak, not thoughts because her mind was too different from his, but something else. Recognition, gratitude, a bond that went deeper than language. Then she turned and walked back to her children. They gathered around her, and together the family began moving toward the hills. Paused once and looked back at. Then she led her young into the cave, disappearing into the shadows of her home. Stood there for a long time, watching the place where she had gone. Doctor came to stand beside him. "The council will want a full report. This data will change everything we know about apex predator species." "Good," said. "Maybe it will help more creatures like her." "It already has," smiled at him. "They are calling it the method, you know, your approach to contact, patience, kindness, connection instead of conflict. There are already proposals to apply it to other dangerous species across the galaxy." Laughed softly. "I just hummed a song." "You did more than that. You showed the universe something it had forgotten. That strength does not only come from weapons and armor. Sometimes the greatest strength is simply the courage to reach out with an open hand." They stood in silence for a while, watching the twin suns of Prime begin to sink toward the horizon. The sky turned colors that had no names for. Purple deepened to blue. Gold faded to soft orange. Stars began to appear, tiny points of light in the endless darkness. Then felt something press against his leg. He looked down and saw one of his offspring standing beside him, the smallest one. It had crept out of the cave while they were watching the sunset. Its young eyes looked up at him with curiosity and something that might have been trust. Very slowly, kneeled down. He held out his hand, palm open, just as he had done in the dark maintenance shaft months ago. The young sniffed his fingers. Then it pushed its head into his palm, making a small purring sound. Gasped softly, made a choking noise that might have been surprise. Smiled. The little creature was warm against his hand, full of life and possibility. "I think she wanted you to meet her children," said in wonder. "I think so too," replied. He did not know what the future would hold. There would be challenges ahead. Not everyone in the galaxy would accept this new understanding. Many would still fear thee and creatures like them. Old hatreds and old fears did not disappear quickly. But here on this alien world, under a sky full of unfamiliar stars, something had changed. A door had opened. A bridge had been built, between human and beast, between fear and understanding, between the wild universe and the small, stubborn heart of a maintenance technician from a farming colony. The young curled up beside him, just as its mother had done months ago, sat in the purple grass and watched the stars appear, one by one. And somewhere in the galaxy, word was spreading. Stories were being told about a human who faced the most dangerous predator in known space and chose kindness over violence. About a mother who found her children. About a bond that proved the universe was stranger and more wonderful than anyone had imagined. This was just the beginning.